Crossover leadership. Maybe I'll start again. Thank you everybody for joining us for our bi-monthly webinar series. So here at Crossover, through these webinars, we bring leaders together, practitioners and experts to share perspectives on topics that are really relevant to today's workplace and leadership landscape. Our today's topic is AI in HR. What works, what doesn't, and what do we do next? So before we start, I wanted to mention that Yogesh is unfortunately not available due to a medical emergency. So on his behalf, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everybody and thank you so much for taking your time to joining in us. It is also my pleasure to welcome Pratap, founder of Leadership Experiences. Pratap has been a seasoned player, HR leader, and has spent many years working closely with organizations, leaders, and teams across a variety of people and business challenges. What makes today's session particularly exciting is that he brings together two areas he is deeply passionate about, HR and AI. So many of you may already know Pratap for his work in leadership development and learning. What I personally appreciate about him is his practical approach and his ability to simplify complex ideas into something that teams can immediately understand and apply. So today's session is going to be very practical with a lot of examples, live demonstrations around HR and AI. So I'm sure everybody is going to take up some useful insights around the discussion. Pratap, thank you so much for being with us today and for sharing your time, experience, and expertise. With that, I'll hand it over to you. Over to you, Pratap.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ridhima, and welcome all of you once again. Couple of administrative questions. How are we planning to handle Q&A? Is it at the end, or are we okay to ask questions? I heard you say that the participants would be muted, so I just wanted to understand that. I'm
Correct. So
okay either ways, but it's better to be clear.
Sure. So maybe what we'll do is, Pratap, just to avoid background noise or some, disturbances, we'll keep everybody muted. But still, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put it on the chat, use the, reactions. Maybe you can raise your hands. And, we will try our best to answer everybody's questions, maybe at the end or, during the session, whatever is comfortable with Pratap. And then we can, we'll try to make the session as much as interactive as possible. So please feel free to put up your questions on the chat or probably use the raise hand button.
Awesome. So that gives that clarity. Great.
Thank you, Pratap.
Okay. So thanks, Ridhima. So I personally would request you all to ask many questions, because if this is going to be a Q&A kind of a session, then we all will benefit significantly, because one of my leaders used to say that the challenge with a PPT is the moment you put that on, there is an automatic tendency to defend the slide. While I'm very conscious of not doing that, that's a tendency. So I typically tend to more get into discussions rather than use the PowerPoint. Point number one. But unfortunately, in a topic like AI in HR, sometimes you need to talk about certain figures, certain workflows, and so on and so forth. So I will use that, just in the background, just to give a context in terms of what we are talking about. Okay. The next point is, we are all at the stage, including me, to really look at what AI is all about at the first place, and after that to really look at how could it benefit in the human resources space, right? So I think the only advantage I had was because after HR, I wanted to get into building a startup of my own, and hence had started learning about AI a little early in life, right? So that helped me to get into understanding some of the basics. Believe you me, I am not an expert, but typically tend to understand what is happening around that for us to really look at AI use cases, not just in HR, but in another area of passion which I'm working on is our pets. So at this moment, I am involved in building a deep tech startup by using AI use cases predominantly in the computer vision space, but followed by the IoT wearables as well as DNA sequencing, which is in the oncology space, and then trying to converge all the three along with the EMR and parents input into like an integrated model of both structured and unstructured data in a very big way from a larger data mining perspective, right? Now it's very different than what I've been doing for 25 years, which is hardcore HR leadership development work and things like that. Now, because of that passion, I also tend to really look at what was happening in the HR space and things like that. So, I think it wouldn't get completed if I don't talk about AI in HR, and especially for HR professionals, is all about taking a career pivot. And I'll tell you why am I saying that it is a career pivot, because today a lot of us, believe you me, are doing work in the space of using AI more from working on or using ChatGPT. We may switch between the LLMs, but primarily that is what we are doing. Some of us would have looking at certain structured outputs. Some of us who are a little more advanced would have looked at maybe a Claude, would have use a Cowork or a Claude design to look at our PPTs and things like that. But I think real AI use cases in HR would come in when we start making AI agents to work for us. And I personally feel that the moment we have AI agents work for us, we then try to look at into the organization how can AI HR agents work. Right. So I think it is very important to understand the larger background. It is definitely not a plug and play when it comes to usage of AI. Now, having said that, now what is happening is earlier we all looked at specialization more from a vertical perspective, right? You are in HR, you are in finance, you are in probably a particular aspect of tech, and we kind of tend to grow vertically. And I think that model of career is changing as we speak. Now, what is happening at this stage is a career is becoming more like a T, and the top portion of the T is where AI is coming into picture, which means you may be an HR person vertically, but it is very important for you to have that T cross on the top, because that is where you would kind of build in some of the aspects, whether you would want to use a vanilla chat GPT, or do you want to use an agent, or you want to have as many assistants working for you, depending upon how embracing you're going to be from an HR perspective, or even to the extent you want to build your own apps, you want to get into vibe coding, right? So that entire spectrum for an individual is open today. And that is the reason why when Sam Altman talked about, I think 4 5 years back, that we are going to see, one person companies having valuation of a billion plus. We all said, how can a company with one employee be a billion plus in valuation? but we saw that in the form of OpenClaw, sometime back, right? In fact, OpenAI, if my memory is right, had even bought over that company for $1 billion plus. And we are now seeing significant number of companies with hardly one, like 5 or 7 employees, but they are $1 million companies in terms of valuation. So I think HR is significantly going to make that transformation. And I personally feel HR is the right team to kind of partner with the CEO to make that transition. And hence, I personally feel, and with 3 or 4 companies who I already consult in that space in AI in HR, are primarily looking at the CEOs talking to the HR saying that if we need to bring in an HR AI strategy for the organization, how does that happen? Do you want to set an example or do you want to take the entire organization into that space? So I just wanted to kind of set a preamble to say that it is a journey. Believe you me, it is not a plug and play, and there is no reason for any of us to feel that just because of AI is coming in, what's going to happen to me and things like that. So let's now get into the what do you call slides. Uh, Let me just try and share that. Are you able to see my slide deck?
Yes, Pratap.
Awesome. So, yeah, so quickly, just as the program we are talking about eventually is a 2 day HR AI in HR workshop. We just called it the Frontier HR, and some of the stuff related to that is mentioned here. But I just want to give a perspective saying that this is not about deep diving into a workshop alone, right? I think we have a role in terms of looking at managing an AI strategy. I think as HR leaders, there is a huge focus for us to really look at what would be the real world use cases in my organization, not in HR alone, right? I know we are talking about AI in HR today, but I think as HR leaders, we have a real, large use case to look at in my organization. What is the role which AI would play and what are the use cases? How would it be governed? What would be the implementation framework? And for the HR leadership teams across organizations, so on and so forth, how do we kind of percolate it? So I think it is important to understand this from a comprehensive perspective. So I call it. It is very important to zoom in and zoom out, right? And someone was asking me, what is the biggest challenge of organizations embracing AI? And in my experience, what I found out is that we are so comfortable with what has been working for us. Hence, we really don't know what we don't know. Right? Now, in that kind of a context, for us to detach and attach to another one is the single most difficulty as managers, leaders. We have a challenge because we are used to a certain thing. So I think when we are talking about a topic like this, if our orientation is to focus on comfort, it is going to be challenging, right? Our orientation we need to shift to focus on a healthy discomfort. I think that transition is significant for any change, and it is absolutely nothing different when it comes to HR or embracing AI. Embracing AI is about our willingness to unlearn and to completely from nowhere learn something. And why I'm able to say that with so much of a kind of a conviction is because what I'm doing personally on the deep tech platform is absolutely from scratch. Right? There is nothing of any of my experience, which apart from a bit of larger leadership experience, there is nothing. Where is AI pet diagnostics anywhere even remotely related to what I've done? So literally learning from scratch is something which I'm doing, which is very difficult. But I think it is important for us to build that mindset of always constantly being in a healthy discomfort space. All right. So I just wanted to, kind of talk about that and then look at moving, right? So if you look at literature, right, which is out there, you would pretty much see this, right? AI can handle 70% of professional knowledge work at an expert level, right? Now, obviously, the question is, what is the HR team doing, right? Now, all of you know, and this is, the next line which talks about it is not a technology issue; it is a strategy, culture, and a leadership question. Is four out of the five organizations I consult from an AI space today started with a large AI workshop for the top talent. People are being picked up, top talent, 3-day workshop. Now, it's great. I mean, organizations can let know people in terms of what AI is. Everybody got on to looking at using ChatGPT. Better structured letters started coming. Email suddenly changed the quality of response. Some of them even started using email without even understanding what the email drafted was talking about. So there was a bit of chaos. All of that happened. But the point is, beyond a point, how do such people be kind of helped in terms of moving up the value chain in AI was never thought about. So then the whole question is there is so much of money spent in generic AI, but nothing specific is being done to look at use cases, look at transformations, and look at a larger strategy. Work on things like what should be the governance model. Like there is no long-term agenda because we all know many organizations do training more from a perspective of doing a training for the sake of it because they also want to be seen doing something, and in this case, in AI. So, so what we understand, and I personally feel when we look at our organizations, each of us are HR leaders, HR managers in our own perspective. Can we ensure that the HR admin tasks, which needs to be automated, we really use AI to kind of build that. And we'll come to much more use cases. But I think one of the things we really need to look at is how can we get into that space, and we'll get into that a little more. But I think it's very important for us to understand that. Now, when I talk about this, the challenge which comes for HR in the AI space is that it is a strategy, culture, and a leadership question. Which means when you are spearheading as a part of your team, you are not only looking at an AI use case and wanting to do something, you need to work on the strategy, the culture revolving around that, and need to address the larger leadership question. So, the way you would upwardly advocate from a larger context has a multifold challenge. So that why is it important? Because now the axe need to be sharpened for a much more time for the cutting to be smooth. And I think that kind of a preparation is significantly required for us to make or move on this needed. Now, I'm sure all of you would have been hearing about what is a GDP val reality, right? Now, this is, I don't recollect, maybe last year or a year before, OpenAI came out with a structure of assessing what realistically can AI do in terms of learning and executing work tasks from a professional knowledge expertise perspective, right? So, unlike earlier models we used to work on, we did not give AI a set of questions or things related to assessing the IQ part of any particular tool. I think we completely changed the assessment part from that perspective and took looked at nine industries and looked at about X number of roles and actually made AI to do the roles of a different category of levels. My intention is not to get into the details, but all of you should know whether you look at the Microsoft's workplace trend index, WTI, or if you look at GDP val reality, you would really know every year that index is getting changed based realistically on what different roles AI can do and at what efficiency and expertise level. And that is when you realize the number is significantly rising, kind of year on year. And if you really look at some of the tools, you will find, the kind of expertise it can go. And we've started seeing specialized tools now, right? I'm sure some of you would have been using a Note LM for research, and the extent of research a Note LM can do, or I'm sure most of the AI folks have stopped typing, right? Everybody today has a Whisper Flow downloaded, and there is only talking which is happening. And I think why is this important is because, like for example, why do I use Whisper Flow? Because life has become of creating the top class prompt. Now, if you need to conceptually transfer a top class prompt into the agent you're working with or to talk to your assistant, your mind is getting structured in a way that you're prompting in such a way that you get the best output of the AI tool. Now, if you in the old ways keep typing, I'm sure there are different kind of learners, and then based on that you could. But from a generic perspective, if I have to say, unless and until you get to use to structuredly master the art of prompting, you won't be in a position to really get the best of tasks as executed. Now, hence, it is very important for us to keep really looking at and to check various roles, because as HR, we really need to understand, like, for example, what are, if you look at the hollow middle, which is mentioned on the slide, it is the mid level roles which we are talking about, the admin heavy roles. Why are they at highest risk? So we really need to run or understand which are the HR roles in the JDP Val reality which are mentioned, and actually double click on them and to really understand how can we make that change. Right. So that is something which is very, very important. And I always say that it is not about AI replacing humans. It is about AI augmenting humans, right? It is about HR getting into more and more a higher order design, and hence a transition of self and workplace, and increase the efficiency, and while significantly increasing the governance gap, or rather focusing on the governance, so that the risk gap is significantly reduced. So my request is to for us to really look at that aspect. So two takeaways: deep dive into GDP reality as a habit. I think every HR person to keep looking at that list and doing the deep dive, and to really look at some of the roles in HR to start with, since we are focusing on that, right? Now, I think this slide is more a repetition of some of the aspects where some of these biggies, like the McKinsey, the MIT, the Harvard, keeps talking about. I'm not going to read what is mentioned, but I think they are much more impactfully shared that the constraint is not technology, it is the organization's operative model, the governance, the culture, what kind of a talent system it is, and things like that. You know, most of the organizations, I mean, like for example, look at low hanging fruits like a large internal customer service team, right? I mean, those are very low hanging you know fruits to manage from an agentic AI perspective, but a lot of organizations find it very difficult to move into that space. So, look at it from that perspective while we look at. Okay, so changing gears a little bit. Now, we all talk about it is good to hear and it is good to internalize, or great to internalize, right? I think it is the same equation here, which we're talking about. It is good to adopt. A lot of scenarios which I was talking about today, where most of the organizations are, we all know that we are at an adoption stage, right? Which is great. But how do we absorb, right? It's like that. Let me take you back to one of my learnings on culture. Years back, I was trained by an organization called Languages and Cultures Worldwide. And there are three things I learned on culture that time. And that was the time I was about to manage a global responsibility way back in 98 as the talent acquisition leader for Tech Mahindra globally. So the question was, we got assessed in terms of how polarized are we, which means how strong are we with what we have built from a culture perspective? How much do we have pride around our culture? And how much, we kind of really swear by it? And then the question was, you're moving into another country to manage things globally. To what extent are you adaptable to those countries? So, from a polarization stage, we were actually given a practice to look at a stage called minimization. And minimization is all about saying that, hey, I go to, let us say, Kenya, I try and listen to Swahili, they speak. Oh, dukan is a word which is used for shop in Swahili and in Hindi. So we say, hey, this is similar. So at a minimization stage, what we do is we recognize, similarities. And then we were told that itself is not enough to culturally completely adapt. You need to go to the third stage, wherein if you go to Saudi Arabia, if you are having a meal with the Arabs and it is a leadership meeting, a meal happening, how adaptive are you to eat with your hand from the same plate as the other person? Are you willing to celebrate their uniqueness? Unless you celebrate another culture's uniqueness, you are not adaptable. You could be maximum be at a stage of minimization and not at the stage of adaptability. So it's like that, right? Adoption to absorption has that kind of a transition, which is looking into, right, the how do we look at institutional capability, how do we look at governance, at a workflow level redesign. So when we look at, AI in HR, one of the exercises we do on day one is to really look at five, let us say, workflows which are completely broken or taking a significant amount of time, the worst customer, internal customer feedback, so on and so forth, right? And then really look at, what about clear decision rights, right? HITL there means human in the loop. So where is that human in the loop, when we are really going to look at AI? And, when we do this with AI, what kind of manager model or inspecting the use is going to come in, and what kind of a capability are we really looking at building over time and things like that. So from being a very individual experimentation which is happening now, or right, like for example a finance would say that, hey, I'm going to use Copilot, or someone else will say, no, for us it is, like disparate or scattered use of tools, some individual private beans based on look at how finance is doing. So more competition happening within functions, rather than a collectively integrated strategy to roll out AI, etc. Now, the reason why am I talking about this transition while it is pretty known to people is because HR is a conscious keeper in this whole transition and the process. So it is very important for us to really showcase stuff not only within the larger HR team, but also as, kind of that prime mover in the organization, right? So again, the point which I'm just trying to see is internally we need to, I may have taken five or six examples there of absorption, but when we come and do a workshop, we really would look at, based on the challenges, that how are we going to absorb, what kind of obstacles are we going to face, what more is required, which are the low hanging fruits for us to really look at, can we showcase certain things and at the same time build a larger organizational collective around the AI and things like that. Okay, so moving on from there, we are on to that journey, as all of us are now understanding. And I'm not going to really look at how the HR earlier role was, but let's focus a little more time on how HR's role is being rewritten, right? Now, I think I have my images coming. I'm just going to, yeah. So, from an architect of a human agent operating model, right? So, we all used to say that HR is no more going to manage humans, right? In fact, I'm sure all of you would have heard the debate that human resources need to be changed because it is more and more machines and robots and all of them going to come in. So, if it is about a fusion of humans and machines, right? In fact, we calling ourselves HR itself, I think, is going to be a misnomer very soon. It's already is, because it is a question of how do you get integration and synergy between humans and machines is the change. So how do you then architect human agents and build a model where, HR really looks at the agentic side of, agentic and, whatnot, but at least to start with, from that perspective, right? Obviously, there is a role of a system designer, right? Building AI absorbing organizations. There is a huge disconnect, and I'm sure all of you would have heard about a guy called Vaibhav Cicinity, right? Vaibhav Cicinity is one of the world's top AI influencer, right? And currently, I just finished an AI, program, a 14-day sprint of about 10 hours a day each. I'm on to doing my AI projects and things like that. It's a 1 year program, but I just finished with Vaibhav and his team. Now, the significant challenge in building AI absorbing organizations is that anybody more than 10 years of experience, we will have a significant challenge to make that organization absorb AI, because the data which I got, or I kind of internalized from whatever the earlier participants, cohorts, and things like that, is the moment your organization is mostly digitally first. I mean, AI first, you don't need to talk about, but that is where the success in terms of AI absorption is high, right? The moment you have, I think all of us, including me, we have more than 10 years of experience. Our graph in terms of ability to embrace AI starts going lower. In fact, I have a friend who has a startup called, I mean, I forget the name, because what he measures is, he measures something called as FOBO, right? We've heard about FOMO, fear of missing out, and his tool measures FOBO, fear of being obsolete. And what does his startup do? Your LinkedIn profile is connected to his platform, and the platform really takes your credentials from LinkedIn and would tell you graphically in every way that how much more time you have before you fall off your career. It literally shows that graph 2026, probably it will go up to 2027, 28, and the graph goes down. It's shocking. But the beauty of what he does is, he then talks about in that platform that if you need to keep that going, growing up at a 45 or an above degree, what is that which you need to do? And what I have seen most is your ability to unlearn. Because if you cannot unlearn, then in the AI world, it is very, very difficult to learn. And I tell this very clearly, all of our generation, right? My dad is 87. What he can do in a WhatsApp is that he can forward a WhatsApp forward to some other group or someone else. He can do that. But he can't do that slice and putting a comment or putting an emoji, right? Now, at our stage when WhatsApp came, we thought that, yeah, maybe old people can't do that, we can do that. And some of us were smart enough to do a cut and paste, color change, and all of that. But I can tell you what happened to him when WhatsApp came is happening to a lot of us, including me, when AI coming, because a lot of stuff which someone with 4 or 5 years of experience can do with AI, the moment you have an X number of, generally, X number of years of experience, it's very difficult for us to embrace and kind of looking at that because of getting used to that comfort and not ensuring that the DNA of healthy discomfort. So I just wanted to highlight that aspect because it made me think from that perspective. Anyway, coming back, system designer building AI absorbing organizations is how our role is getting rewritten, right? Of course, quality standards, learning cultures are inevitable because that is changing, and very critical to really look at where does AI stop and human judgment begins. The deciding factor in the organizations in being an architect and a designer to do that is what AI or HR role is being rewritten. I just took four of that, but there are an additional 15 more which I didn't put, but I just thought these four were relevant. We are at about 45 minutes since we've started. What I'm going to do, we have another 45 minutes. I'm going to talk maybe another 15 more minutes to share a few more slides. And I'm just going to pause there. And then we will do a Q&A because, I think there is a limit in some of the questions which you can write, but I don't want that discussion not to happen. So I'm just going to increase the speed a little bit because I believe there is some ground building blocks we have built. So I'm just going to take it to the next level, and then we'll open up for Q&A, and we'll come back if there are a couple of more slides to be done. Is that okay? Can I get a thumbs up,
Sure.
whatever, if you can? Yeah. Super. Okay, let's quickly move. For some reason, I'm not able to move my slides.
Yeah, it's come.
Yeah, it's come. I don't know why it wasn't, but okay. So, on the lines of what I was talking about, these are the four AI integration models. There could be different models, but I thought this was something which, from a context of where most organizations are, we kind of really look at it. So, so these are the four things, right? There is an aspect of automation. I think that continues. I remember 10 years back, 15 years back, when UiPath and some of these tools of screen scraping and all started coming in. Our bucket of automation was probably the significantly high. But now, if you look at, as we said, there is a automation role, right? Repetitive rule based tasks, and there is something which a human and a AI together needs to be done, which is the augment space, which is about 40 to 60%, and then 60 to 80% advice phase continues to be with HR roles like succession planning, DEI analysis, culture diagnostics, attrition risk models, and things like that. But still, AI can help up to 40% there of the kind of models it can build. We'll come to that. And then, of course, anything to do only judgment, right? Your specific grievances, exits, bias sensitive hiring, the real empathy moments, or cultural conflicts, etc. Obviously, AI can't play a role, right? That obviously needs to be protected and not thrown away, so to say. But broadly, I think it is important to understand this from what are the modes of AI integration. I think it's time for us to quickly look at. I don't know why my. Yeah. So quickly to talk about the next aspects. I won't spend much time, but I think this is an aspect of if you need to build a governance model from a human in the loop perspective, uh, it primarily again looks at the four tiers here, right? Which is very similar to the four model which we talked about. So that is something which I don't want to get into from a. So if you look at the automate, augment, advise, and protect modes of AI integration, this primarily talks about from a human in the loop governance perspective. it kind of double clicks on that to kind of emphasize the not replacing human accountability point of view, because it talks about every HR function needs a documented human in the loop, right? Charter. It kind of highlights onto that aspect. So just kind of keep that behind. Okay. Now we all can choose what we would want to choose, but what I want to really talk about is these are some of the AI applications across HR we could look at. So, for example, when we do a workshop, obviously we can't touch upon all of these elements, right? So you could really look at, and I think we have looked at. Someone will say that, hey, screening of CVs is something which is a significant challenge. How can I build an AI there? So, in talent acquisition, you may want to work on that, because working on one such use case and building an AI agent around it will take about half a day, right? So that could be one, right? Someone would say, hey, that's not an issue. I think role fit, based on assessments, is something which we need to really work on. Can you build an AI system an agent which can get built around that, right? uh, we have a competency model today. We struggle to build JDs around that, or from a competency model, my organization is moving to a skill based model. How do I make the transition? Can I really look at building into a skill based model and work happening around the JDs quickly based on that? Now, there are three organizations I've been tracking the last 5 years in HR, and I think they have been giving a run for money for both Success Factors and Workday. Right? Success Factors is SAP, supposed to be the best ERP HR tool. Workday is another big one, right? Now, if you have not got exposed to tools like Eightfold.ai, Beamery, or Gloat, you're missing the journey, right? Because these organizations and the kind of, I mean, Eightfold.ai, proud to say that owned and run by two or three Indians based out of the valley, is already probably a 7 to 8 billion valued company. Right? Now, they came out with three products. One on recruitment, probably the best in the world today from an AI perspective. I'll tell you the use case there. Second, talent management, right? And third, a workforce planning and a gig model. Eightfold.ai is incredibly superior when it comes to these three areas in a very big way. So, just to give a highlight, if you run an Eightfold.ai, and today I think we can build similar systems for our companies on our own, can you imagine that once you can build a workflow tool as an HR person, you can just have a link sent to a hiring manager. A hiring manager would talk to that link or whatever appears there in terms of saying that what he or she wants from a candidate perspective, right? And you can build a voice agent to that extent, saying what is that, because 99% of the JDs are JDs. People who are hiring, they make decisions based on certain desirables which is there in their mind. Desirables. And that hardly is there in job descriptions. AI has the ability to kind of, and what you build, I just gave you an Eightfold AI example from an inspiration perspective for you all to go and check it out, right? But from what you build, by listening, the tool which you built, by listening to that tool, the tool can make a JD based on what the hiring manager just spoke to that tool. The tool will ask you 3 or 4 questions as a hiring manager. It would make interview questions based on that. And if you decide to have AI as a recruiter, it can listen into the candidate, and based on the reply the candidate would give, which is recorded, and if there is a video interview, then it would also look at your NLP to understand the neuro linguistic aspects to it, programming aspects to it, and then it can do an assessment. So what used to take 2 months to hire a person or a candidate can today be done in probably less than 3 to 4 days, depending on the schedules and all that. The respective people are doing it on time, both the hiring manager interview and the HR manager, right? Those are possibilities of AI tools which today we can make in our own organizations, which is very customized to what we need to do. So, what you see in this slide, is different areas where you could work on. You want to work on L&D skills, there's enough and more written there, right? If you want to work on HR operations, workforce planning, employee experience, performance management, talent acquisition, these are our bread and butter. It is extremely important for us to work on these and to really look at. And there is nothing wrong. You can just take 1, 2, or 3 use cases, establish that, and then get on to the others. Okay, so I'm just going to look at a deep dive. Okay, and then this deep dive, because otherwise you will say that I'm broadly talking about conceptual, right? Now let's come to 3 use cases where we really talk about saying, how could you do a JD optimization? How could, like, so we have taken a talent acquisition example, right? A use case. How do you build a multi-channel sourcing? How can you build a NLP based CV screening? How can you ensure there is a bias mitigation? How can you do a shortlisting? How can interview questions being looked at? And how can you do scheduling, right? Now, as I said, it may take half a day to build this entire workflow, right? To really look at what needs to be done. And respective individual people can go back. Of course, there is some bit of hand holding required to look at which agent to choose. So you will probably have a mentor technically to help you to build this. But today you are able to build this workflow completely in AI in your organization by yourself, right? And I'm sure when you say yourself, there would be a team of 2, 3 people will put together from the AI workshop to kind of work on this and get it built. But you could use, some agents, right, and build it. I mean, based on the organization's license and things like that, we can choose which tool we are going to use and things like that. But this is something which can be built. So this is something which we have built as a tool, like in an organization, right? And why am I wanting you all to go and look at eightfold.ai or Beamery, Beamery, or Gloat, Gloat? One is a company from London, one is a company from Israel, and one is a company from the US, is because these 3 companies are ruling AI HR tech today in the world. It is not Workday or it is not Success Factors. So this is one use case, and by implementing this, your 500 CVs to top 10 candidates can be shortlisted in a significantly lesser time than what normally would have. The rest of the statistics I've kind of mentioned it there. Okay. Then look at a use case in learning and development, right? Now, I mean, these are opportunities for us to significantly transition, right? Right from, you may have a competence model, you may have certain Excel databases, but connecting to that, you could look at creating a skill gap analysis. You could look at creating learning profiles. Absolutely individualized content curation can be done today. You could look at adaptive learning interventions or even real time assessments. Because managers can be or mentors can be connected, you could look at coaching or prompts related to that. Obviously, for larger leadership view and things like that, you could have a dashboard. So, the point which I'm just saying is, I think the ability of HR to get into, because whether we like it or not, every job is going to be a technology job. But thanks to AI, the need to understand or know coding, etc., is not required. Live future and today is all about AI journalists. So the question is only making the transition from being a hardcore HR domain specialist to being a AI generalist too. So the HR managers, leaders who are able to build in that AI generalist quotient, I think would have arrived in life pretty soon. And I think that is what the nudge I'm trying to give by saying that this is what we can literally build, right? So and then let's look at another use case, right? Well-being and retention, right? Attrition is going to is continues to be a huge struggle. So right from measuring passive signals to risk scoring to root cause analysis to manager alerts, right? I remember in GE, I used to manage two businesses globally for GE, and I used to be based in Hyderabad. One was financial services to start with, and the second was software. And I remember Pramod Bhasin that time talked about half it, a strategy which he wanted to implement is to half attrition, right? So that time there was obviously no AI, nothing like it. So what we had built that time, which is now a popular tool called as early warning signals, right? And a lot of people have looked at the red, amber, green early warning signals, but at the end of the day, it either would have been on an Excel sheet or someone would have made a workflow, a digital backend tool with that, and each day team managers are going and measuring based on where people are and things like that. Now with AI, if we can, 15 years back, if that is what we used to do, look at from a larger perspective what AI can do today by our ability to really look at this use case, to really look at, to build, I mean, you can actually build this, you can do it, vibe code it, you can create an app on your own, right? And you can have the managers or whoever you want to download the app, which is a local thing, and you can manage the whole thing based on that. And look at the amount benefit, right? Uh, the cost we are saving in replacement, reduction in attrition percentages, which we are working on, and the larger ENPS scores, which we can gain in a period of 12 months' time. So I just picked up. So if you look at the slide from here, what I have done is looked at one use case each, right? Like that, we can build similar use cases in the rest of the stuff, right? And so, we are about 5:04. I'm going to quickly pause here because so these are primarily the five urgent imperatives. So I'm just going to pause here because we spoke on each of these in detail, and I don't think it requires further reinforcement. So I'm just going to pause here and ask. Let's do a Q&A. I think that would be better because we have about 25 minutes, and I think that would be helpful. And in the meantime, I'm going to forward uh, one more use case. Like, for example, I'm sure all of us would know content transformation is a big use case, which means anything and everything today we can make videos. I remember when we had to make videos, we would get people who would make videos for us, either for training or for any employee communication, HR communication, marketing, etc. And I remember paying even 1 lakh per video, 2 minute videos, right? And many, lakhs used to be spent in that space. Today, such videos can be made by us on our own as low as 2,000 to 5,000 rupees, right? So think about how HR communication can change anything and everything. We can make a video of our own, be it introducing any learning program, any HR communication, anything to do with, I mean, anything and everything. Anything which we would love, instead of posters, to build a video and mail employee communication, today is possible, like in 15 minutes to be made. And I wish I could showcase that. I work with a partner organization to build that, but that is something, that's another use case which we could. I'm going to end by showcasing that those two videos so that you know what I'm talking about. But let's pause and let's look at some of the uh, questions which we may have. Over to you, Ridhima.
Sure. Thank you so much, Pratap, for that insightful session. Maybe
You're
happy to take questions. If anybody has, you can put it up in the group or you can directly unmute yourself and
Yeah.
say your question.
Am I audible? Can I go ahead?
Yes, Pratap. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. First off, Mr. Pratap, thank you so much. This was a very nice coverage of the entire function.
Thank you.
The key question that I had in mind was, we talked about a single person unicorn, which is started off as a great kind of, at the time Sam Altman mentioned it, it was raising a lot of eyebrows. But then later on, we found that it was closer home. Even Chandrasekharan, TCS head, said that by 2035, 2040, he expects to have as many agents working in TCS as individuals.
Right.
So the key thing is, you also talked about the role being transformed, the HR role getting transformed.
Right.
You also mentioned that it's important to become generalists and to be aware of what one can do with AI.
Yeah.
So do you see that this managing human beings to be very different from managing agents? Now, would there be a comprehensive HR responsibility that takes care of not just the human resources, but all the resources, including the agents?
Yeah. Your question, great question. And I think your question is triggering one of the thoughts which Stephen Covey many, many years back had trained us, saying that you need to start with the end in mind. Right? Now, when you give instructions, and those days we used to, it is all about showcasing your team member, or when you speak, many of us, and I remember an example I used to share, that, Indian government has selected you to go to Egypt and select the best person who has built, the pyramid, and bring him or her here to India to build a monument. So, because of the language challenge, you could ask only one question, and the Egypt government had shortlisted 3 top experts in Egypt for you to interview. And of course, you need to go to the place of work and interview them. So the first person I asked, "What are you doing?" The person is doing fabulous work. And he says, because that's the only question I ask, and he says that I am cutting this beautiful marble stone. and he is doing an exemplary work. In the next room, the second shortlisted candidate is a lady, and I ask her, "What are you doing?" She's exactly doing the same job, but she tells that I'm making the most prominent, desirable pillar, right? But the person is exactly doing the same job as what the first person was doing. And the third person, another lady I speak to, she tells me that she's making a monument, right? And she's exactly doing the same job as the first person and the second person. There is no prices to say that you would select the third person, because the person has the end in mind. So the person having an end in mind, her ability to build and have that end in every piece of that chipping she's making would be significantly larger, bigger, whatever one can explain, than the person number one. So to now come to your question, so the moment you're speaking with or agents, if our ability to convey what you need, and if you are really not considering them as your colleagues and talking, it's going to be very difficult to get the best of output from them. I think our mindset of not able to seamlessly integrate machines with humans. I remember 15 years back when we used to hear about robots in Japan, that they are living alone. They started having robots. We used to wonder how come these guys would manage, right? Today, it is so much of a reality that we know probably at 99% of areas, a sensible robot is far, far, far superior than a human being, right? Be it an operation or, I mean, keyhole operations, robotic today, I mean, those are very low hanging fruits today. Look at today, I think, you know, people were asked 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years before, how many years did the human beings live? Unfortunately, the average age was 28 or 29 years. That was the average age. Humans never lived beyond that. Today, insurance, we get up to 80 or even 90, life insurance, right? In the next 10 years, for the people who can afford, the average age is going to be 120 to 130, because pretty much AI can do a lot many stuff. Very soon the gene therapy which is coming in, whether it is cancer, diabetes, or whatever, will kind of completely reverse engineer the wrong genes. So, which means, you're, and pretty much lot many parts can be replaced in the human body. So in that context, I think the human's biggest challenge is going to be, really looking at and kind of interacting and giving the kind of, I think it is starting with prompts today, but I think how better we are able to get that in an optimal way is going to be the biggest challenge. And I think, today we have also solutions for that, provided we get to learn that we really need to know how to move up the value chain, because many people would not want to let go of what they are used to doing and things like that. So I think letting go and making the human or the agent being a natural co-worker are going to be the two biggest challenges from my perspective.
If I may ask an add-on question.
Sure.
Many times in HR, we used to emphasize on the emotional quotient or the EI.
Yeah.
So we used to say that IQ is no longer the measure of how far a person can go. It is the emotional quotient or the emotional intelligence that a person brings to the table. But with this change in constitution of a significant number of agents coming in,
Yeah.
that part of the responsibility of HR do you think it will just evaporate or transform, or what will happen to it?
I think from my perspective, it will significantly go higher because the need for empathy is going to be very, very high because workplaces will start becoming more rational, more logical. So the balance, everything we need a balance, right? If you look at a Hogan score, you as an HR person would know, we will select a great leader who is between 30 to 70 or 90. Anything which is lesser than 30 or more than 80 or 90, we know there are derailers, according to Hogan. So, for us to kind of build that aspect, and that is where the judgment role, the last piece of the human element, which is, while human in the loop is good, but the human in the loop should not miss the aspect of judgment, and in judgment we will see more and more empathy coming up in a very, very big way. And I think that challenges significantly go up, and lot many roles will come up to build that aspect in a big way. And I see psychologists, very top end people who are specialized in that kind of coming into organizations much more to kind of build that equilibrium or the balance. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Padma, for that question. So happy to take few more questions even before we wind up for the day. Anybody? Also, I just wanted to add that we have a WhatsApp group called Leadership Chaska. My colleague Bhavna has shared a link on the chat. So it's basically a growing community for leaders, HR professionals, where we regularly keep posting learning resources, upcoming events, leadership conversations. So even in case if you want to have a conversation with Pratap, I can get that scheduled. So in case if you're looking forward to have a deeper, context or for this particular topic, do let me know. We can, get this scheduled along with Pratap.
Yeah. May I request you, can I send you the link by WhatsApp, Riddhi?
Yes, you can.
Okay, because, it's important for me to also showcase, if you could play, there are two videos in the Google Drive I sent you. While you bring that up,
Mm-hmm.
I,
Sure.
I'll just go stop sharing. I could
No.
have looked at, I can come back in case if I want to share, but yeah. So I talked about content transformation, and today, by just taking a ElevenLab license and a HeyGen license, one is video, one is audio, you could make videos like this,
Yeah,
right? You
I'll
could
share.
yeah. So just look at what can be done in 15 minutes. You could, I'm just wanting to, and do share the volume if you can of both the videos.
Is the volume audible?
No, but you need to, no, the volume is not audible. You need to share the volume and make it big screen.
Okay.
A Zoom has an audio setting of sharing volume. If you can just,
Okay. Will you be able to do that, Bhavna? Let me just check. Audio.
yes, yeah, go to Zoom, just do the audio, and there is, I think, a button called share. If you can just do that audio share, then whatever you're playing, the others can listen to it. And I'm sure a lot of you would have this use case, right? I mean, look at content transformation, and it really changes. So these are two videos. One is on, let us say you want to send a message of embracing AI into the organization and build a series of communication around it. You can do that simply on a video of your own, right? You just need to have these 2 licenses. Or, you can also have a platform like a Mango Giraffe, wherein you can pay a rental to that platform and start doing it on your own. You don't need separate licenses for that. I've also got one made because one of my clients wanted a video on stakeholder management based on the SCARF model, David Rock, which is one of the best. So we just kind of had done. So any luck on that? No.
So maybe
Reports and requests.
Yeah. Now you can go from now. It is on.
Every day begins with a long list.
Can you make it a full screen and then play? Yeah, bottom right full screen. That one, and then play.
Of tasks, deadlines, and decisions competing for your attention. Emails, messages, reports, and requests arrive faster than ever. Sometimes it feels like you're doing the work of several people at once. But what if a smarter way of working was already available? AI can take care of repetitive work, helping you move faster and focus better. Reports, communications, and insights can be generated in seconds instead of hours. When routine work takes less time, collaboration and innovation take center stage. The real value of AI isn't replacing people, it's helping people do their best work. Your AI journey starts now. Learn the tools, build new skills, and help shape the future of work.
You can play the next one too.
You had the plan. You had the budget. You even had leadership buy-in. So why didn't it work? Because change isn't a process problem, it's a brain problem. Research shows the brain responds to social threats much like physical danger. Status. Does this change make people feel valued or diminished? Certainty. Uncertainty is the enemy of adoption. Give people a clear roadmap. Autonomy. People need to feel in control. Offer choices and invite co-creation. Relatedness. Build trust through transparency and create opportunities for people to connect. The next time you're leading change, run it through the SCARF lens. When people feel safe, certain, and respected, change doesn't just happen, it lasts.
Thanks, Ridhima. So this was just to showcase you could build videos like this in less than 15 minutes. I mean, think about any content getting transformed, right? It takes probably, if you give the right prompt, it takes less than 30 seconds to have the script written for you, along with whatever images you require. You either you just have a license of a HeyGen and ElevenLabs, you select the voice, cut and paste the script, and within seconds, a content is transformed to a communication like this. And this Seed Dance 2.0, which is the best in terms of video, is what is behind this. And at much, ElevenLabs for a month license costs $17. Right? It gives you the best of voice. HeyGen, I don't recollect, but you know what I'm saying? So many things from a content perspective, transformation, all of that is possible. So I just wanted to showcase a couple of stuff which we did because that organization wanted HR communication to completely change, including. So after that, the marketing department took that. So they're making videos, their Insta posts on LinkedIn, everything. And they have a tool called the NA10, which they have implemented through this process, would do the posting, everything to their social media organization and things like that without a single person touching it. Completely managed by NA10 and the video making tool. That's it. So that's the kind of power we're talking about. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Any last minute questions, anything it could be. There is nothing wrong or right.
So, Mr. Pratap, would it be possible for you to share your LinkedIn handle on the chat?
LinkedIn, yes, I will.
Yeah.
Yes, please, I will do that. Yeah, I can do that. In the meantime, any other questions for some?
Sir, good evening. This is Sita Lakshmi from academics. I'm
Yes,
not from the corporate. So can I have one basic question.
Yeah.
When we are dealing with the students, actually, what sort of skills that the students should enhance to be retained in this AI era, especially when they are taking the HR as a specialization?
So I think great question. I'm actually doing a session with HR MBA folks in one of the colleges. So
Okay.
number one, every weekend, Sita Lakshmi, Outskill as an organization, you can go to outskill.com,
Okay.
gives a 2-day free training online on AI.
Mm.
You go to outskill.com, you just need to
Okay.
register
Okay.
a 2-day free online training. So, for
Okay.
example, the video which I spoke about, the day 2 is dedicated to that.
Okay.
So, Outskill's objective is to make as many AI journals as possible. Now, obviously, you get onto another program, advanced. Obviously, there is a cost and things like that. But this 2-day training can really help you understand what kind of AI use cases in HR or in marketing. It necessarily not just in HR, right?
Yes.
Which you need to build on. And I think what makes sense for the institute is to then look at, can you run a hackathon, in marketing, in HR, in as a competition, and let them use some of the free tools, or if there is a budget to be given so that they can get basic subscription to some of the tools, and let them really look at what could be some of the industry use cases from a pain perspective and build solutions in AI around that. Because that is going to be a big thing from an internship they could gain. Because someone who can do that, organizations who need interns would grab them because they're all looking for AI capability to get projects done. So I think a syllabus ideally on AI in HR and getting people to really work on use cases and building tools, building AI agents. I think if an MBA grad can build a couple of AI agents, I think then we have kind of arrived in terms of really looking at. So if you need anything any more, this thing you can reach out to me. But
Sure.
I would recommend registering on outskill.com and getting that free training done to start with, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I put my LinkedIn, on. You could send me a request, and I will definitely add and ping me on message or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe Pratap is, Padma has just dropped, but I'll forward this LinkedIn to him, not a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
All right,
Okay.
then. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And we hope you found this session, valuable. And we look forward to staying connected and seeing you in the upcoming webinar. Our upcoming webinar is on AI for sales and marketing. So we'll keep sharing the registrations link and everything. But in case if you have any questions, I would request everybody to join the Leadership Chaska group, and we can stay connected there.
Great.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Ridhima.
Thank you, Pratap. Bye-bye.